sister. Riley.
Hello everyone, welcome to another movie review. I just saw Shelby Oaks, which was written and directed by Chris Stuckman, who of course is a very well-known movie reviewer on YouTube, who I've been a fan of for many years. I don't know exactly when I started watching him, but it's been a while. Him and Jeremy Jahns, in my opinion, are like the all-time greatest movie reviewers. You know, I know there's a lot of, especially now, a lot of reviewers on YouTube, but to me, those two guys are always like gonna be the guys to review movies. You know, you had Jeremy Jahns, who was more of like the casual movie reviewer, kind of more, you know, funnier of the two, and then you had Chris Stuckman, who was more of like, I don't know how to explain it, more of like more detail-oriented reviews. I feel like his reviews are more scripted also, but he really went into the details of like the filmmaking and, you know, all that stuff. With all the movies he reviewed, and you know, to me, those two guys were always just the face of movie reviews. And you know, they always had like a very similar amount of subscribers too, which was always funny to me. So yeah, it was never like, you know, one is better than the other. I always watched those two guys' reviews pretty much for any movie I was looking forward to. Now, in the last few years, Chris Stuckman made the controversial decision to like not review movies that he didn't like, you know, because he was making this movie, and he pretty much learned how hard it is to make a movie, you know, in a, you know, hands-on perspective, and, you know, he respects like the dedication and all the hard work that goes into making movies. So now he kind of stepped away from like criticizing movies that aren't good, which, you know, I can respect his decision not to do that. I get it. But at the same time, you know, that's what your role is. You're supposed to tell your audience, you know, what you like or don't like about a movie, you know, pros and cons, and you can let the audience, you know, make up their own mind. You know, it's only your opinion, you know. Like me, for instance, like there's movies this year that people didn't like that I really liked, you know, like Him, for example. I liked Him. I liked Black Phone 2 quite a lot. You know, Tron Ares I thought was okay. You know, there's certain movies you can point out, that, you know, not everybody has to agree with you, you know, and it goes both ways. So, and like I said, with Jeremy Jahns as a reviewer, he never holds back, you know. So I always respected that about him. But yeah, I've been a fan of him for a while now, and Chris Stuckman has always wanted to make movies, which, you know, I commend him for doing that. You know, I mean, never say never. I doubt it, but I don't think I'll probably ever make a movie that's gonna, you know, get a theater release, you know, by a pretty, you know, well-sized studio, Neon. You know, they distributed this movie, and this movie was very much crowdfunded, I believe, too. I didn't contribute money to this back in the day. I don't know why. Now, looking in hindsight, I don't know. Maybe it was because I was in between jobs at the time or something, or whatever. Or, you know, Chris Stuckman's got, you know, a couple million subscribers, so I probably figured he had enough money coming his way anyway. And he did, from what I understand. This movie, you know, made plenty of money for its budget, from the Kickstarter campaign or whatever. So yes, this is his first movie. And, you know, a prime example of like a great YouTuber turned filmmaker would be obviously recently Raka Raka, who did Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, which are two great movies. I'll see everything those guys make, and I can't wait to see what they do next. But in this case, Chris Stuckman, his movie does not have quite the budget of those two movies, and it's not quite on the same scale as those either. So this movie is a horror film, and the premise, you have two sisters. The main character, Mia, is looking for her sister, Riley, who's gone missing. The beginning of the movie, you get like a sort of documentary-esque explanation of like what happened. Like the first 15 or so minutes of the movie, I felt like, were just like a pure documentary style intro, and I thought that part of the movie was very well done, actually. So Riley, the younger sister who goes missing, she is a paranormal investigator, and this does take place in Ohio, where Chris Stuckman is from actually. And I believe Shelby Oaks is a fictional town. I don't think this is real. But she's investigating with her team in Shelby Oaks, which is like an abandoned old town, and they end up going missing. And people online have their theories about, it could be a hoax. It's just for publicity, whatever. It's for views. And obviously, Chris Stuckman being a YouTuber, there is the whole like social media aspect of the movie too. Like, it is a YouTube channel, So I thought that was incorporated pretty well too. Obviously you want to pay tribute to where you came from. So that was cool. And basically the rest of the movie, you pretty much get that backstory, and you find out things along the way. There are. It's not pure horror in the sense of like a body count, a slasher. It's not like that. It's definitely more psychological. You do get jump scares in there, and then you have Mia. I don't know the actress's name, but she did a good job for the most part. I'll get to my negatives later. But, yeah, you have the whole movie, basically her searching for Riley. And I gotta say, this movie's not bad. I definitely have quite a few critiques, though. My positives first. So, the movie is shot very well. Like, it looks great. And even the effects, there is some, CGI elements in the movie, I'll just say that. I thought they looked good for the most part. I don't know what the budget of the movie is. Obviously, it's lower. But I thought everything looked fine. Like, I thought the camera work and, the visuals, everything was shot nicely, too. Some great composition, with the shots, especially in, there's a prison setting in one scene. And that looked really cool, too. And I heard it was the same prison from Shawshank Redemption, so that's pretty cool. I don't know if that's, the same exact corridor they used in the movie or whatever, but that's a cool fun fact. I don't know if they shot Shawshank in Ohio. I guess they did. So, and then the acting too, I'll say. There aren't a lot of characters in the movie, which is going to be one of my little critiques later. But the main actress does a good job. There are little moments though where her reaction to certain things, I'm like, I don't know. But she does a good job. Like, she has to carry the whole movie essentially. She's pretty much in every single scene, and she does a pretty good job. Like I said, nothing, amazing, but a few moments are like, I would have did that a little differently or something. Not me per se. I mean, as a director, I guess, because I can't act, obviously. So what else can I say that I liked? There was some creepy music in the movie, I guess, but there wasn't enough, which is going to be another one of my critiques. You do get, like I said, there aren't a lot of actors in the movie, but Keith David shows up, which, it's not a spoiler. He's in the cast list. And his little role was cool. I love Keith David, and, it's crazy to me. Like, Chris Stuckman goes from being a guy making videos on YouTube, and he's making a movie with Keith David. Like, that's awesome. He was cool. There were certain jump scares that, they were effective. I didn't get personally scared, but like I could see people being scared. I thought they worked really well. But yeah, that would be my biggest takeaway, is that like visually everything looked awesome. Now my critiques. And again, I doubt Chris Stuckman's watching this. If he is, I'm a fan. I respect you. I've been a fan for years. I love your reviews. I love your old Hilariosity reviews. I know you don't do those anymore. But I applaud you for doing this. This is one hell of an accomplishment, I could only dream to ever do anything close to this. But I gotta say, the movie felt like it's a very short movie, but it dragged. And I don't know how that's possible. Like, by the time we got to a certain thing happening in, like, the end of this, well, I would say, yeah, in the third act, I'm like, oh, we're here already, And then when the movie ended, I was like, oh, okay, we're done already. You know what I mean? And I would say in the second act, it drags a little bit, which is weird. Like I said, it's not a long runtime, but it feels long, but it also feels very short at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. Now, I did notice there was a lack of score / soundtrack, so that might have contributed to it. Also, there aren't a lot of characters in the movie, and also, there is pretty much no, like, levity in the movie. Like, aside from, like, the beginning documentary part, which has some, like, little funny, YouTube comments showing up, there's like zero levity in the movie, which, not saying you need to have, like, comedic parts in the serious movie, but, like, I don't know, like, something, just to bring up the pace a little bit, I don't know, something could have helped. And then, what else was I going to say? Yeah, just, again, the pacing was a little weird for me. Not enough characters, I guess. And then, the few characters there are, you have Mia and her husband, who have, like, a sort of strained relationship, and they touch on it a little bit. I would have liked to seen a little more development between them, maybe. And, just more characters, I feel. Like, I get it's low budget. I don't know. This movie felt kind of empty in the sense of, like, there wasn't a lot going on. And again, we get to a certain point, and I'm like, wow, we're here already. Like, okay. Like, I feel like not much has happened in the plot, So Chris Stuckman wrote and directed this. The directing part, excellent. I think he has a great eye for everything, and, he knows how to get certain things out of the actors. But in terms of the writing, I don't know, something more to the plot, maybe. I don't know, because you get this big setup, and then you're sort of, like, left with, like, kind of a lackluster feeling when everything is all said and done. There is, like, a, certain twists in it. I know he's a big fan of M. Night Shyamalan, and, I could definitely see that, being represented here. But, the twist, it's interesting, I guess. I don't know. To me, this movie wasn't, like, anything super memorable, aside from the fact that this is Chris Stuckman's feature film debut, which, again, is incredible. But other than that, like, I don't really see myself, thinking about this movie again, or, wanting to see it again, or whatever. If he makes another movie, absolutely, I'll, like, rewatch this or whatever, and, go see his other stuff. But I don't know. This movie to me was just okay. Nothing memorable, really. Again, I hate to say that. Go see it, though, absolutely. Like I said, this is what reviewing movies is all about. I'm not a good reviewer by any means. You can go ahead and say I'm a decent reviewer, but I don't believe you. This is what we do. We just say things to let the audience know, like, hey, this is how I feel. Maybe you agree with me on certain things, maybe you don't. And that's the beauty of having an opinion, I guess. Because you can relate to certain movie reviewers, and it's like, oh, I'm always agreeing with that reviewer, so I'll go off of that person's word, or this person's word, or whatever. I don't know how else to explain it. But yeah, I feel like I'm bashing this movie, but I don't mean to. I'm just saying, like, it's like a C- for me. I wanted to give it like a C+, but it's a C-. It's not D territory, because again, there are some redeemable things in this movie. So I'm gonna give it a C- for me, which is like a 5 out of 10. And I feel really bad saying that again. It is what it is. But go see this movie, like I said, regardless. If you've ever watched Chris Stuckman before, you could at least do him the courtesy of, like, paying, to go see it in a theater. And in the theater, too, like, the sound, it was a good theater experience, I felt. Not a lot of people in my audience. I did see it at a 3 p.m. showing, so maybe that's why. But I was happy to see, like, okay, there's some people here. I would have been sad if it was just me by myself in there, But go see this movie, again, form your own opinion. You might like it better than I did. I looked at my letterbox. I see some people gave it a little higher of a rating than I did. But for me, I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. Again, I'm just giving you my honest opinion. It was just okay. It wasn't bad. I'm not going to say this movie's bad, by no means. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm going to stop. I don't know. I just felt a little unfulfilled at the ending, you know. Yeah. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comments. And I don't know if I don't think I'm missing anything. I pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover. It's a very short movie, like I said. It's like under an hour and a half, I think, before credits start. Yeah. So let me know what you thought of the movie, like I said, and if there's anything I didn't touch on that you want me to touch on, let me know. But that's it. Next week is Halloween, so I don't know. Is there anything coming out? I have to look. But I will be in Orlando next week. I'm going to Horror Nights, and I will be going to, there's a convention over there called Spooky Empire. I'll be going to that the day after, which would be November 1st. So I'm excited. I'm very excited. So, but anyways, thank you guys for watching, and have a good one. And go visit Chris Stuckman's channel and get Stuckmanized. All right, see ya.